two things to say. Number one, I agree that he is the marquee signing, and he is probably the signing that I've been most excited about out of the ones we've made so far. I think it's always a good sign when fans of the club that the player has departed are disappointed to see them go, and that very much looked the case from the MK Dons fan base from reading a few things on Twitter, that they were disappointed that they'd let him go. And let's not forget they had a really good season, or certainly a very good second half of the season when they got into the playoffs. As you say, a lot of experience at this level, so that is a very, very good signing. It does sort of say where we've been with signings, that our marquee signing so far is a fullback. He's a solid player for the level, but I think we are, as a fan base and as a club, we are crying out for that marquee, that player that's going to get us out of our seat, whether it's a forward, whether it's a winger, like we had after last year. We are crying out for those marquee signings now, because you look through the squad. I mean, I think I've counted 21 players we've got signed up now. So there isn't, considering Nigel sort of said he wanted a squad of 24, 25, there isn't a lot of space in there now for many signings. And we sort of expect there'll be a couple of loans come in. So, we're just waiting now, aren't we, for that marquee signing. But I am excited about Norman. I think he's the right type of player for us to bring in, somebody who's experienced at this level. He's 28, so he's the right age. And he can play across a number of positions as well, across the back four, which is something I think we badly need at the moment. So, yeah, I would definitely agree that he is the most exciting sign, and I think we've made so far.
And with him arriving, I wonder what it means for Lee O'Connor. Lee O'Connor has signed a new contract. He's been at right back for the entirety of last season, and suddenly he's got competition for that position. I also wonder if it suggests that Nigel Adkins is looking at what he can do in terms of rotating his formation as well, because Norman could play on the right of a back three. He could also play as a right wing back, which I'm not too sure O'Connor would be suited to. So it gives tactically the manager a lot of options as well.
Yeah, I think he's a very different player to O'Connor, as you touched on. And I think that is probably what Nigel's looking at, is having that option, because, if you go back a few years ago when we obviously had Bristow and Cogley, that was exciting because we had two wing backs that could get forward, take people on, put crosses into the box. We sort of haven't had, when you think of the fullbacks we had last year with people like Pike and Wood and O'Connor, they weren't really those type of players. So, hopefully he is a player that can give us, drive us sort of forward from the sort of fullback, wing back position. We just need options, don't we? I agree that, we've now got O'Connor and Norman, so we've probably got two players who would expect to start in that position, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I think you've got to have options. At the end of the day, O'Connor could tear his hamstring in the first game and be out for the full season, and then you stood scratching your head. So I don't mind having, some depth there, particularly with the defence, because it is still looking like that defence when you go through it. So, yeah, like I say, I think he's a good signing. There's still definitely some work to be done with the defence in terms of bringing players in. And I think that will probably be something that they'll be working on now, because that is, I would say, when you look at our squad now, that is, I think, the area that we look really thin on the ground still.
Well, I think a winger is still the key man, to be quite honest. Apter is the person who, in theory, kept Tranmere up last season with the goals that he created and scored, and he's obviously not going to be there next year. Look, they could muddle through at the moment with the back four that they've got. They could, in theory, if they needed to, play Norman as a centre-half, or there'd be another option within the squad should Davis or Turnbull be out injured. They're thin on the ground, I agree, but they haven't got anyone who can fulfill that right wing role. Nigel Adkins might think it can be Taylor or Solomon. He might do. But for me, getting that right winger and replacing the goals that Apter scored and created himself last year is the key thing. And if they don't manage to do it, however optimistic we might be at this moment with the squad that they've got, and I think there is every reason to be much more optimistic now than there was 7 days ago. But if they don't manage to get that right winger position right, or at least someone who can add some productivity from that position, then it's just going to be quite similar to what we've seen over the last 12 months.
No, I agree. I mean, I just thought we were well off it last year throughout the season, really, other than that spell around Christmas and January when we took off. Other than that, we were miles off it as a squad. And for the second half of the season, I would argue we had one of the best players in the division, and we were still off it. So the fact that you now take him out of the squad, I'm looking at the squad, and I don't look at the squad and think, okay, this is a squad that's going to kick on and and put us in the promotion places as it stands. Now, the next 2 to 3 signings, I think, will dictate that and determine where we will end up in the table. Are we set for another season like last season, or are we going to be in that top 10, top 7 and be kicking on? And like I say, I think the next 2 or 3 signings are going to decide that. I absolutely agree that we need a winger. We've got to replace Apter. I suspect that will be in the shape of a loan. I suspect we will be looking to bring in a similar, type of player to Apter, maybe a young winger from a Championship club or a Premier League club, or maybe it's someone like Apter, someone that's got a bit more experience in a League One team and is a little bit out of favour. So we do need to make that signing. But to come back to the defence, we've got to get a centre half in the building. I've been going on about this for a while, but Davis and Turnbull, for me, they're just not reliable enough, either of them. They will put good performances in, but they're going to put stinkers in. And they're the only 2 centre-halves we have. I know Norman can play there, but they're the only 2 centre-halves we have. So we absolutely need at least one first-team quality centre-half through the... we don't want another Yarney or another Kyle Jamieson. We need another first-team quality centre-half through the door. And full-back as well. We've only got Connor Wood as the left-back. So, we probably need another full-back as well, ideally. But, yeah, I would agree the winger is definitely key, but I'd say centre-half for me, even more important, would be my opinion.